Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the BJJ Brick Podcast. My name is Joe Thomas. I'm here with my good buddy Byron Jabara and my other good buddy Gary Hull. This week we have a great show coming at you. We have Alia Garcia-Valadez. She's a teammate of mine here in Lake Jackson. Really inspiring some of the challenges she's faced in her jiu-jitsu journey and the way that she continues to fight and press forward. Guys, how you doing today?
You know, I'm doing great, and I love it, Joe, that, Byron misses a week and you kind of take over. You publish an article, you do a couple interviews, and you just change the start of the show. Instead of saying, my friends, ladies and gentlemen.
Did you notice?
Yeah, and, it's, I guess they talk about you quit your boss, not your job. And really, I've been kind of ready to quit here for the last couple of weeks. But, Joe, with you now being my boss, you've changed everything, and I'm pretty happy. So thank you.
Well, I'm not sure if that's going to work out for you, but if you do quit or come to an end here, make sure to hit me up. I might have something else in the works for you.
He knows your dancing skills are quite nice, Gary.
Hey, he tips well.
But yeah, excited for
Byron.
Yes.
Byron, how you been? Where you been here? You missed last week.
I'm doing good.
It was our highest ranked show. So
last week,
what have you been up to?
Last week was episode 318. This is 319. And yeah, that was an amazing episode. I'm really proud of you guys. It was fun for me to listen to that one as I edited it, because usually I listen to everything as I edit it, and it's all kind of a second time around for me because I've heard it before and experienced it. But this time, as I'm editing it, I'm listening to a podcast instead of editing a podcast I've already heard once. So that was a lot of fun. I'm doing great. It's great to be back here in Wichita, Kansas. It's great to be back on the mats, getting a little bit of time with Gary on the mats as well. Took a bit of a vacation with my wife. We went to Iceland, and it was quite the experience. It's really an amazing place.
Byron, did you do any rolling in Iceland?
So, yes, I
Awesome.
did. And the thing that I run into with my experience in Iceland, and I've had it before when I grappled in Myanmar, is I grappled my first day in Iceland, so I got a decent amount of jet lag. So when I'm hitting the mats, it's like past midnight at home, and it's a long day of travel ahead of me that I just had. And same thing with Myanmar. I had traveled, I think, 30-some hours to get there, and I got a little bit of a nap. And hey, you wanted to just this I was with some people, and they had arranged a thing for let's do it. And again, I was just exhausted, but I did roll. I wasn't nearly as tired in Iceland as I was in Myanmar to grapple there, but super nice and very fun. I can't even say the name of the gym. I can't pronounce it correctly, but it's the same. It's Gunnar Nelson's gym
Awesome.
there in Reykjavik, and 2 black belts were there. Very, very nice facility, very nice people. And they taught it in Icelandic, in their language. But I was paired up with most people there are able to speak English as well. And I got paired up with one of the black belts that could speak English, and he showed me everything. I really enjoyed the format of the class that got there. We warmed up. They showed some techniques. We paired out, did techniques, and then you're rolling. And before rolling is start in the position of the technique and kind of roll, light sparring from there, and then actual rolling. And at the end of class, we came back to the technique, and he showed it again and asked and answered questions that really the questions
Awesome.
came from people having troubles with it while they were rolling or during the positional sparring. So that was a really cool way to kind of end the class. Let's look back at what we did. What did you guys have problems with? What didn't work? And that was a really neat technique as far as a teaching tool that they used. But I bring my off the mat lesson from Iceland as well. I've been to several foreign countries, but until now, I haven't driven in them. I didn't even realize that. You just find other ways to get around. I've been to several countries where they drive on the other side of the road, and I've already I'm not going to do that. I think I would get into an accident if that's the case. So they
Did
drive
you bring
on,
your jetpack? Did you bring your jetpack?
left it at home. They don't like you to fly with that.
Okay.
But so I'm pretty comfortable. I drive a big truck, a big fire truck for part of my job. So driving a little car in a foreign country, I'm like, okay, this shouldn't be too bad. I can figure this out. And we get in. It's a normal car. I'm driving on the correct side of the road, and so within an hour of getting in the country, I'm driving this car, and I pull out of the car rental place, and immediately I see a sign. It's a yellow circle and has 3 diagonal lines, like stripes going through it. Like, wonder what that means. And I just try to drive. There's traffic with me. I'm not, so we're going. And then I see a sign. It's a blue circle with a red bar going across it, like half of an X. Like, I have no idea what that is. And then I see other signs. I see a red X on the blue circle, and I see all these. I can't read the language, so anything that's written out, I don't know what that is. They do have stop signs and yield signs that are the same as what I'm used to here in the United States. But there was a lot of signage. As a driver, I know that these are important things I'm either not, I just don't know about. And the thing that surprised me about this is my own reaction, and my wife as well, because she drove a bit too, but we didn't even look up the signs for more than a week, maybe a week and a half. Is when we should look up what these signs mean. So that's terrible. That's not a safe way to drive in a place. If you're going to get a driver's license, the part of the thing is, what are these signs and what do they mean? So I drove probably close to 1,000 miles without being able to read the language that's on the signs and not knowing what this even, just the basic. They have the red light, green light, and yellow, system of traffic lights, and they have roundabouts and this sort of things. But a lot of the signs, we were just clueless, and so we're trying to figure them out. We drive by. Okay, what did that mean? As we're continuing on, okay, that one meant clearly that the right lane ended. Okay, that was easy. But some of these signs are just not intuitive, and it's just funny to me that we were, you get to your hotel or your Airbnb or whatever, and you're so tired, you just do a few things and go to sleep, and then wake up and hit the road again, that we didn't even look up what these signs meant. And it could be, a situation of life and death, if you misread a sign, or, is that blue X mean one way and not this way I'm going? I don't know. So it's just kind of funny that we waited so long to actually look up the driving signs. And I'm just reminded in jiu-jitsu that you could run into some common problems. Let's just say, you're trying to pass guard and you just keep getting arm barred, and you could, you just keep rinse and repeat, get arm barred again, try to pass guard, get arm barred again. And I think the most common solution is to ask the person, hey, what am I doing wrong? Or, how can I not do this? Or ask your coach, or maybe watch a video and try to get a little bit of help. And the video might not be how not to get arm barred. It might be, okay, you're trying to do a knee cut pass. Watch a knee cut pass video and watch where they're keeping their arms, or watch something like that. But it's just funny to me that I didn't seek help for a long time. And I think that's common in jiu-jitsu, is people, they know they have a problem, an area of deficiency, and they don't seek help for it. They don't ask the coach. They don't ask a training partner. And they just try to figure out themselves, like I was doing with the road signs, probably being a terrible driver and probably annoyed a few people, I'm sure. But that's kind of what I got from that. I thought it was it's more of a, to me, it's just amusing how bad of a decision I was making every time I didn't look up the signs on the internet there, and just continue to drive.
But you made it. You're back. You're in one piece. So I guess that just goes to show that you can pick some things up intuitively, and it's never too late to pick up a book or go online and find some information. So
yeah, did not wreck the car. Did not wreck the car.
There you go.
I hope you bought the damage waiver just in case, though. Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, that's a smart idea.
Yeah. The only thing Byron told Joe and I before he left was no games. He didn't want Byron or Joe and I to play games. But really, the only games we did were 6 BJJ training games. How'd you like that for a segue, Byron?
Very nice.
Hey, Byron has a audiobook, 6BJJ Training Games. We have a link to it on the show notes. I'll run through all 6 real quick. The Nike Method, Ragdoll, Model Someone, Set Limitations, Man on a Mission, Backwards Grappler. It's 1 hour and 2 minutes of time. It's basically try to get your game out of a rut. Playing these games will help you, will help your training partner. Sometimes your training partner won't even know you're working this. It's a good way to build teamwork. And, I know Byron really likes Ragdoll. Joe and I, we're big fans of the Backwards Grappler. Real quick, tell everybody what Set Limitations is.
I'm pretty sure this has to do with if you're really reliant on grips, maybe you don't take grips, or maybe you're only going to play bottom position, that sort of thing. If you're a good blue belt at purple and you're rolling to white belt, you can sort of even the playing field by setting limitations on yourself. The thing I like about this is I actually have used this over the last week or so because I took a hipper on my skateboard. The board flew out from underneath me and I landed right on my hip. Got a big bruise on my hip. And really I can play a limited amount of top position, or I can play half guard on my right hip. Those are kind of my only options. And so that's what I've been doing. I go in class and I just ask my opponent if we can train with those limitations. So it's a great way in general just to make your game better or to even the playing field. But the one thing I like about this book is it just opens the idea to you that every match doesn't have to be a full-on live training session in order to get value out of it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep, everybody listening too. Joe talked about the injury he's had. We will post a picture of that just so you can see.
Not the type of website,
this
Gary.
Is the kind of website.
We're laughing because before we came on the show, Joe sent a picture of his behind with a big bruise on it.
It's my hip, Gary. It's my hip.
Looked like a behind to me.
It hurts like the son of a gun. So
I want to keep Gary from behind you.
Anyway, that's 6 games for BJJ. If you're looking for a way to improve your jiu-jitsu game, I would strongly encourage getting that book and playing some of the games. And Gary, where can our listeners find that book?
You can find that book, link to it on the show notes. Check it out, $5.99, 1 hour and 2 minutes of content. Your own Byron Jabara guiding you through that. Joe, you were talking about, that's a good way, to get better at jiu-jitsu. Another good way, I always said, to really improve in jiu-jitsu is just persistence. And, Joe's favorite author, Tony Robbins, once said, persistence overshadows even talent as the most valuable resources shaping the quality of life. And, I just think of so many people who have done jiu-jitsu who can't train 7 days a week, can't train 3 days a week. They based off of their job and family responsibilities may only be able to train 1 or 2 days a week. They do not quit. They keep going. And I've seen people train 2 days a week for 10 years, and these people are absolute monsters on the mat. And, I think persistence on and off the mat is one of the best qualities you can have to get good at something. Yeah,
it's interesting to see when people start jiu-jitsu. Some people just pick it up a little bit easier, or maybe even a lot easier, even with no actual background in other arts. Just 2 people walking in, both normal people, both, no experience with any grappling or martial arts, and one of them is just naturally picking it up easier. And so that would be like the comparison of just talent. Somebody's just better at it, a little bit better than somebody else just starting. But really, that's not the important factor. The important factor is persistence. And so the first thing that person must kind of persist through is watching somebody who started the same time they did, or basically the same time, get better than them. Hang in there. Persist through that, because that is a little frustrating to experience. And give it some time. And sometimes the people who start off really good, they don't stick around. I mean, sometimes people who start off bad don't stick around either. So some, lacking persistence, they might fade away. And it's much better to be the person who is maybe a slow starter or just slow pace throughout their entire journey, but they stick with it and they proceed to get better. It's a better way to do things than the person who is training really hard, and within a year and a half they're a blue belt, and within a year after that they have something else to do. Like, that's not what we're trying to do. We want to, get through any sort of frustrations and hurdles, and that persistence is an important factor. So if you're frustrated with your progress, realize that persistence is something that you can control, and it's one of the most important things in how good you're going to get at jiu-jitsu is how good you are at persistence.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's just jiu-jitsu. I think any endeavor that you undertake, you try and get master something, there's going to be periods where the learning comes easy and you make quick progress, and there's going to be periods where it's difficult, whether that's because life circumstances mean you don't get to train as much, or you're fighting through an injury, for whatever reason. There's periods where the learning comes easy, and there's periods where it's a battle. The difference between those that make it to the top and have a successful and enjoyable journey isn't how hard they try, how hard they work, how well they do when the learning is coming easy. It's how hard they try and how hard they fight when the learning is coming hard. So you got to be persistent in the tough times.
Joe, if I had a bell, I would ring it right now. And I know we haven't talked about this in a couple weeks, but with what you just said there, you won the internet again today.
Ding, ding, ding. Winner, winner. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate it, man.
No, I really like that. I mean, when the times are tough, because that's the time most people are going to quit. This quote, made me think of my own jiu-jitsu journey. And Byron, he can attest to it. Byron would smoke me all the time when we first started. I got armbarred by Byron about 400 times the first year. And, we were both brand new beginners. I mean, second year, I probably got armbarred 4,000 times by him, triangled 6,000 times year 3. But it's just something, it's persistence. I'm that guy. I always told myself, it's like, man, look how good Byron's getting. I got to keep training. And there were a lot of hard times. And I never thought about that. But the hard times that's the easy time to quit. And, if you have persistence through those hard times, because it's easy to have it through the good times when everything's flowing, but to have it through those hard times and keep going. And that's where your teammates are going to help you out, give you a pat on the back, talk to you, help you through a move, or just encouragement will always keep people going.
Gary, if I could give you a win on the internet, I would, but I can't, so it would mean nothing. You're the one that could bestow that sort of an award.
No, Joe already won it.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
He's locked it in.
I'm gonna share this one with you, Gary. That was a good follow-up, man.
Yeah, there's no take back.
We're stronger together, brother.
Yep, synergy, buddy.
Joe, what can we expect on the interview?
Man, I had a great time talking to my teammate, Alia. She has an incredible story of struggle and persistence. She's had some injuries and some setbacks in her jiu-jitsu martial arts journey, but she's fought through them, and I think everybody's going to enjoy this, so stay tuned.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
If you catch him in an armbar, don't forget to pry open his fist after he taps. There will be a small piece of paper with your fortune on it, and it's always correct. When he was a white belt, he put a small amount of glitter on his belt, and then went on a world tour. If you look closely at your gi, you will probably find a few specks of glitter. He got you too, my friend.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
BJJ Brick community, I'd like to welcome Alia to the show. Alia, give us a quick introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why we're sitting right here doing this interview.
My name is Alia Garcia-Valadez, and I am a 39-year-old blue belt that is on her way to Vegas for Masters Worlds for my first IBJJF tournament. And recently, a friend of mine shared a article regarding some of the stuff that I had gone through, and it seems like it hit a note with some people, and people could totally relate. So
it did. It was a very inspiring story. So, as I recall, you started doing Muay Thai first?
I did. The very first gym that I was at was an MMA focused gym that specialized in Dutch style kickboxing, and we fell under. My coach trained with Maurice Smith,
which is awesome. I told you I was totally jealous when I found out that you met him.
Mo's awesome, and the things that I learned were just fundamentally the basics of where to put your feet, where to put your arms. And I grew up watching boxing. My dad was a huge influence for me, and so it's I was a Hagler, Hearns, George Foreman, Butterbean, kind of like Julio Cesar Chavez kind of kid that I loved watching that kind of stuff. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience. I did it initially to lose some weight and get healthy, and I was going through kickboxing and a lot of cardio that I had never done in my life. When I started, I couldn't even do a sit-up.
Wow.
Like, at all. Not even a push-up.
Yeah, we're definitely of the same era. Hagler has always been my favorite
Yes,
fighter.
yes.
Tough as
Yes.
nails. So, at what point did you have your first health issue, and was it directly related to training?
Well, I think 345 pounds. I've always fluctuated really heavy, but I had never been that heavy, and it was to the point where I'm walking down, walking the dog to the corner, and I'm out of breath. And then I was a heavy smoker, and I was just out of shape. And 15 years, kids, 3 kids, it just it takes its toll on you, and you kind of forget about yourself. And I played sports my entire life. I ran, I played basketball, I was always an athlete. It just kind of falls by the wayside, and I had to learn really quickly that when you're all that your kids have, I have to be able to be here every day. So that's Absolutely. How I started at the gym, and it just, the weight just, without changing my diet, I still ate tacos and Whataburger. I just, the weight started coming off, and it was like, at first it was like water weight, and then it was actual weight, and then the clothes start shrinking, and it's like oh okay, and then you plateau at some point,
right?
And I'm tall. I'm a tall girl. I'm tall for women in general. Like it at a certain point, I kind of got a little focused on the number, and then after a while, you realize that number doesn't mean anything. That number on the scale doesn't mean anything. I'm okay with being super heavy.
Right. So at one point, though, you had a stroke on the mats?
So it was a mix. It wasn't as a result of a choke or anything. I know that there's actually in all of this, I've learned that there's a group out there on Facebook that actually are for people that have suffered the type of stroke that I've had from chokes, directly from chokes. Mine wasn't from that. The initial one was a mixture of high blood pressure that was unchecked, just not taking care of myself, burning the candle at both ends, a lot of stress. And then you add in working out and not taking care of yourself on that other end. And working out can, raise your blood pressure, especially when you're going, and you're sparring, and then, getting knocked around a little bit, it can happen. So it wasn't directly as a result of getting punched, but it was one of those things in the beginning that was pretty scary. My sister and my brother-in-law found me, and it was one of the scariest moments in our family's, lives. And it just, finding out later, as I had more, it was actually a second-year resident, a student, in a sense, in the emergency room who had just gone to a conference for reasons why people would have a stroke that would normally not have a stroke. And he wanted to run some tests, and come to find out I have an autoimmune disease that causes my blood to clot too much.
Okay.
So, if I have a stressful day and my blood pressure starts to go up a little bit, or if I just run around. I was running 5Ks at the time too, so running, for a long amount of time will cause it to kind of start, and it throws clots.
So, and then the clots break loose, and
then go travel to the right side of my brain, so it affects the left side of my body, and that's what would be paralyzed. So it was called a TIA, a transient ischemic attack. Okay. So I say a small stroke, but then ICU nurses will tell you that there's no small stroke.
Not having ever had a stroke, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you on meds now to help manage it, or mostly diet and exercise?
I was that girl that did not even like taking an aspirin, or Allergen, nothing. And then now I was forced a little bit. It's either, you can do this and train and not take meds, but you're still going to end up right back in the same boat, which I tried that route because, I thought I knew best and better than my doctors. And I'm the queen of, I go to the doctors and they'll tell me one thing and I'll say, well, okay, well, hold on, let's compromise a little bit.
You're a horrible patient.
Very, very bad. And it got to the point where I ended up with one doc that just said, look, do you want to keep training? Yes, of course. Okay, you want to keep training, then this is what you have to do. So it's your choice. He just flat out was just straight up and said, it's your choice. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. You will not only not be able to train, but you won't be alive. So I was like, well, fine. So yeah, meds, way more than I would like to take, and I have to take blood thinners for the rest of my life to keep the clots in check since my body overproduces them. So,
and you've been advised not to do any more kickboxing, is that correct?
I can't have any type of striking. I used to hit pads, I would hold pads for people, but you get new people that have a wayward kick, and next thing you know, you're getting cracked in the nose and stuff, and it looks like a murder scene. So,
Worst black eye I've ever had was holding pads.
Oh yeah.
You think that's pretty safe, right?
Yeah,
Kick came right over the top, and
yeah. So. And the same thing with, you throw a kick. My favorite type of kicks are leg kicks, inside leg kicks and outside leg kicks. Those that sound of a shin against that meaty part of your leg. Oh, it's just some people what's that thing called, the ASMR stuff, that sound of that when I watch videos and stuff of the crack of the kicks is just gives me goosebumps. But that, trying to check a kick like that, from someone, you end up with a huge bruise that looks like an Easter egg, and that's a clot. I mean, it's essentially a clot. So that was the compromise that I had to make, was either you can do this and possibly this happen again, and you don't live, or you can settle down, do jiu-jitsu. I have to know when to tap. I'm not that person anymore where I would let it go until I almost passed out. I can't do that.
I'm in the same boat. I honestly used to feel that there was no danger to trying to fight out of a choke, because the worst happens, you get choked out and then you wake up. But then I've heard more about these type of issues, and I'm much more careful about tapping the chokes these days.
And it's nothing. It's no big deal. I mean,
you just tap.
You just tap. Yeah. It's one of those, tap or not wake up. It's like no, because that's essentially what a choke is, right? It's a joint manipulation and leg locks and wrist locks and stuff like that. To me that's different, because that's not stopping oxygen from going to my brain. Right. A choke is, I don't mess around with them. I don't play around with them. It's decision I had to make and a choice I had to make. So, yeah.
So, tell me a little bit then about your transition from striking into jiu-jitsu.
That was, my coach, my kickboxing coach was very very goal, talk to us about setting goals, and not just big ones pie in the sky, like small ones to just smash these small ones, and before you know it, you can smash the bigger ones. So I started, and I used to be a list maker. And that's what I did. I made a list of goals. I want to be able to do 50 push-ups. I want to be able to do, 50 sit-ups. I want to be able to do squats and, whatever. And I added jiu-jitsu because after class I would watch them like roll around on the floor with each other. And in the school we had it was more of a grappling program, and it was also catch wrestling, heavy catch wrestling and stuff. So I'd see these guys rolling around, and I thought, oh man, that's really intimate. I saw sweat being dropped on other people, and I thought, God, and then aggressive cuddling, right? That's what they call it now. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do this one day, because while I am a hugger, I love to hug people. Jiu-jitsu is just a whole other thing. They're forcefully invading your space, and it was odd to me, but also fascinating. So that's how it started. After the first stroke, it was in late October, actually, like right around Halloween. And when I got out of the hospital.
What year was that?
2015. So
not too long ago, just a few years.
No, just a few years. And that was when I got home. I spent a good chunk of time in ICU, and then you get put in the regular, room and stuff. And then I came home, and I ran back to the gym as soon as I could, because it was I had been training already for just about a year, so it was such a normal part of my day that I felt weird at home, then physical therapy coming over, and it was just not what I wanted to do. And I was like, let me just go back to the gym.
When you first got back in the gym, did you still have limited use of your left side?
With the first one, I was weak on the left side. I couldn't. There was a time where I couldn't move the whole left side, and it was me and a gangster ICU nurse willing my toe to wiggle in the middle of the night before my kids came to see me. And it was one of those, like, I'm going to walk before I get out of here. And they, the PT people come to the ICU room, and they're like, take it easy. And they just want me to sit up in bed. And I started standing up, and I was like, I'm walking this floor. You can watch me or you can help me.
Kickboxing is not easy. Do you think that experience of your kickboxing helped with the determination it took to do that? Oh,
absolutely. I've always kind of been stubborn.
Yeah.
My mama will tell you. I've been pretty stubborn my whole life. But, and I've never been one to quit things, but definitely, my kickboxing coaches were the type of people that would say, I don't care how long it takes you to do this warm up or to do these push-ups or sit-ups, just get them done. We're here. And they would cheer. It was the type of gym where I'd be there struggling. I was never the fastest. I never finished first. I was always the slowest person, always the oldest person, and the biggest person. And so I'd have this group of people that were just cheering me on, literally cheering me on. I mean, there were times where I would be doing push-ups and I was crying because I was struggling so bad, and they would class would not continue until I got done, and I felt, you feel bad because you don't want to hold anybody up, but it was that mentality of teamwork and just, we're here for you. You're going to do this. You can take it slow, you can take it back, but you're gonna finish, And he would always say your brain will quit before your body does, which is so true. Yep. And that has always stayed with me throughout everything, through physical therapy, through, in the later strokes. The second one was the worst of them all, and that one I had both physical and cognitive deficiencies that still kind of linger a little bit. So it definitely, that mentality of don't quit, you just keep going and push, and the whole idea of, I am not going to get stuck in this bed. They were talking wheelchair ramps at some point, and it just swirly all. It's just like, ooh, you ever see those movies where it's like and your ears start ringing? That is what was happening when they're talking to me about putting in a wheelchair ramp in my house, and I'm just looking at my sister like, no.
This can't be reality.
Yeah, and it just no, it wasn't gonna happen. It was not gonna happen, and so my whole thought of, I'm going to walk out of here. I'm going to walk out of here. And who's going to carry my kids, and who's going to pick them up from school, and who's going to, like, all of that. Like, it goes through your head in an instant. So definitely helped. Nice.
So how do you feel about your health and the direction it's going now? You're pretty happy with things?
Good. My diet could be better. I love me some waffles. And let me tell you what, we didn't have a Buc-ee's in Corpus, and we would travel to Port Lavaca, like a good hour and a half away, specifically sometimes to get like beaver nuggets.
People are going to hear this, they're going to Google Buc-ee's, and they're like, it's a gas station.
No.
But for those of you that don't know, we're in Texas, and Buc-ee's is a thing down here.
Buc-ee's is so like, and being here in the cradle of Buc-ee's now that I live up here in Missouri County, it's stopping at 301 on the way to the gym and just grabbing, beaver nuggets. It's bad. My diet could be better. But we've had to find the right fluctuating so much because of we kicked up training. Well, I'm at the gym every day, but I kicked up training quite a bit to prep for Worlds, and so with that, my weight kind of goes up 20, down 20, and your meds are adjusted to your weight. So sometimes it feels like it's a little too much. Sometimes it feels like it's not enough, and so it. And then with the stress of just trying to get there, and and asking for help, it's. I never had to do that. So it was definitely a stressful situation. So I've been able to keep it under control. But besides that, I mean, I can't complain. I had one since moving here, which moment, but it was also one of those burning the candle at both ends kind of thing. That's my problem, is I take on too much, and I want to do everything for everybody and be everything for everyone, and I've had to learn that that's not always.
Yeah, well, that kind of segues into the next thing I wanted to ask you about. You have taken on the role of being the team mom at the gym.
Yeah.
More specifically with the ladies, which I really appreciate. You are really promoting women's jiu-jitsu in our community, but is that a role that you took on purposely, or it just kind of found you?
It happens. I've only been at 3 gyms in my entire training lifetime, and the first gym, it was the same thing. You've got the students are the ones who clean, and it felt right to me that we should be mopping, we should be cleaning, we should be picking up. And I'm a pretty personable person, if you can't tell. I'm very outgoing. I'm very friendly. My best friends and my former coworkers used to call me Gracie Lou Freebush because I'm like Miss Congeniality. And for other reasons too why they say it, but it's one of those roles that it's just how I've always been. And in my former job, that's what I used to do. I stood up in front of people and talked to people and trained them on how to do things. So going into the gym, being mom, it's just what happened. And then eventually I started having some of the MMA fighters that were students that I noticed weren't eating. They were training, prepping for fights, and it wasn't about a weight cut. It was they weren't eating. These are kids. These are college kids that live away from home. So we'd invite them to come and live with us. And everybody's always been a lot younger than me.
Let's be honest here. Most of the students are half our age.
So was a natural transition into, let me make sure that they're okay. Let me make sure that they've got what they need. And I don't like seeing people go without, and it didn't matter if at the time, I mean, honestly, at the time, there were times where it was rough. My kids and I, we didn't know. I knew they were going to eat, but I'd go without eating before they went without eating, And so and also too, I tend to attract the introverts because I'm such an extrovert. So, it was one of those like, okay, gym mom, let me make sure she eats. Let me make sure, this person, has their homework done. Or, I mean, that's kind of the role it's always been. And then here, this is the for jiu-jitsu, this is the most the most I've ever seen as many women on the mats. So coming in, when I called, coach before I started, I was originally going to go to another gym, actually.
Well, I'm glad you came here.
Yeah. And it was kind of, I just dropped in for the week. And so that's seeing that. He's like, yeah, we have a women's team. There's a couple girls who come pretty regularly. I was like, all right, cool. And then the first day I get there, it was like 2. Yeah. And then gradually I saw more and more show up, and it just turned into the same thing. Like, hey, you got, Jits Mama is what, some of the, did you guys get this done? Okay, well, yeah, do you need this? Well, let me help you, and let me, it's just how it goes. But it's okay. It's a role I don't mind playing at all.
Yeah, I hadn't thought too much about the different personality types. You are an extrovert, and I think part of what you do is you give them a voice. I notice you gather up the girls for pictures all the time.
Yes.
Put them on Facebook.
Yes.
It's easy for them to just kind of get forgotten.
Yes.
So.
Yes. And because what I've always tried to tell them, I know that, some of them compete, but not all of them are very keen on competing for whatever reasons. And what I've always told them is, if I've learned anything about, like, you go into tournaments, it's you network. You network. And that's where I think my former job kind of helps a little bit. But you network. You go out there and you meet people. And I know some people don't do that. They like going to tournaments. They go do their thing, and then, bam, they're out and they go eat. Not me. I like to go and meet people. I like to go and watch other, divisions and ask, okay, what's their name, and follow each other. It's a great thing when you can follow each other on social media, or people that you followed for years and you all supported each other and shared each other's posts, which is you get to meet them live in person, face to face. So it's one of those things where I would tell the girls, like, hey, y'all can meet other women in your division. So if you ever start competing more, you can see that there's other people out there, and these are the women you're going to go up against. And it's so much more fun, I think, And
so I noticed that you're at a lot of tournaments that you don't compete at. Mm-hmm. You go as a spectator and a supporter of your teammates. Do you feel that you also, besides networking, does it help your game? Does it help you prep for tournaments because you're watching what's currently happening?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Whether it's the male or female division or even the kids division, honestly, it's one of those. I will always be the loudest cheerleader. I'm that sports mom, that team mom, where I will scream. And I don't care if they're on our team or they're not on our team. I will cheer them on just because. Just because. Why not? What does it cost us to cheer someone else on and applaud them? So, but it's also a game thing. I struggle to find, besides a couple, and I'm talking like I can count on a hand how many heavyweight women are out there, black belts that that look like me. Right. There's a lot of tall, super heavyweight women that compete at a global level, but very few. Besides probably Gabby Garcia, but it's very few that look like me. So what I find is that I feel like I can't do a certain move, or not that I can't do it, but I have to adjust it because of the way I'm shaped, or, because of my flexibility or whatever. And so I like to go to tournaments to see someone who looks like me. I don't care if they're a white belt. I don't care if they're a purple belt or high. I don't care. It's just someone who looks like me that is pulling off a move or doing something that maybe I don't do. And I'm like, Yep. I should put that in the file, or I'll jot down on my notes on my phone, and then I'll come back to coach and be like, hey, so I saw this girl do this thing, or if I can record it, I'll try. But it's like, I saw this girl do this thing, and I think that would be a good addition to my game, which I never thought I'd be that person that would be like, I have a game, but but now it's like, hey, what's your game? People, I don't know if that's a blue belt thing or whatever, but it's like, hey, what's your game? I don't know. It's like, to survive.
You're onto something there, though, and I try and tell all the people who look like us or who don't fit into that stereotypical jiu-jitsu athlete mold, because some people are much smaller, and so they're outside the box. Some people are super tall, they're outside the box. I always try and tell people, I've never had a coach not help me when they're showing a move, and I say, hey, coach, you got an old man version of this? And they always come over and they say, yeah, you're not very flexible. Try moving your hips out a little more. Just try something completely different. So that's golden that you're onto that already.
Yeah. And I love that our coaches do that. I love that I can bring anything and be like, I think this would be really, it's not about being cool. It's just about, I want to win, know?
It's effective.
Yeah, it's effective and it works. So do you think we can jazz this up for me and see? And even if it's still a struggle, I just, drillers make killers. So you just drill.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit more about tournaments and advice for tournament players, but I also wanted to ask you if you have any advice for students who, like us, are often the biggest people in the room. Specifically, I have found that sometimes my game suffers because I don't want to just be the guy crushing everybody. So I don't work on my top pressure as much as I should. Do you find the same thing? How do you counter that, especially getting ready for a tournament?
In the beginning, I absolutely felt like a bull in a china shop. And, my coach at the time would tell me, who's like my brother from another mother now, but grown men are not going to let you beast them. Like, it's just not going to happen. And then I'd be like, whatever. And then I try to muscle out of stuff or, like bulldoze them. And I'd end up getting, because they're gonna outstrength me. They are, especially when they're like 6'2" and 300 pounds themselves, and so I learned, unfortunately, the hard way that I can't be that way, and it got to the point where I backed off a little bit, honestly. I did. I played on the bottom a lot. I would just work on like spider guard, open guard, try to, put them in my closed guard and see if I could just choke them that way. Cross collar chokes, there for a little bit were my favorite. and because I thought that's at some point when I transitioned from moving from Corpus to here, it was a change in my game. I've always had coaches who support the whole, all around athlete, a little bit of everything. But when I came here, within a few weeks, coaches were like, why do you stay on your back?
Yeah.
I was like, well, I don't want to, I want to hurt anybody. Like, I don't, this is just the only time I would turn it up, honestly, is when I go in tournaments. That's when I would turn it up. And but my very first tournament, the very first one I had an opponent, let me back up and say that. The very first one I had an opponent, I froze. I got to my back. She was smaller than me. She weighed less than me. And she still kept me on my back the entire time, for gi and no gi, because she was my same opponent.
And it was more of a mental issue than a physical.
It was. Her side control, but she literally just racked up points on me, and I did not move. And then I thought, gosh, I don't want to crush her in my head, in the middle of competing. I don't want to crush her. I don't want to be the bully here. I don't want to be. And there was that mentality of, gosh, I don't want to do that. And it wasn't until I got here that I was like, like, no, this is not happening. I'm not going to do this again. And then I had another tournament and then another, and it just got to the point where top pressure is not a bad word. It's not at all. And so that was more of a mental thing, getting that out of my head, and then having, coaches be like, why are you not on top? Let me show you some. And also too, because of injuries, I stopped having to do takedowns.
Yeah.
So various tendons and ligaments that are torn, takedowns were just not. So I thought, because I can't do a takedown, I had to kind of go on my back, not necessarily pull guard, but just kind of end up there. And I've learned that is not the case, and top pressure is my jam, and I love it. And also side control. Nice. Side control and being able to finish from side control, and modifying certain techniques that generally, like, there's one that shall remain nameless, that considering it is competition week,
so just to interrupt you real quick, this won't air until after your competition.
Oh, okay.
So I've got some other questions for you. You don't have to worry about giving away anything.
Okay. So most people like to do the bow and arrow from the back, or when the person's in turtle position, because I just don't, and I don't end up with people. I actually don't end up in that position very often, but I end up in side control a lot. I had to learn to modify and be able to pull off a bow and arrow from side control.
So you like hand the lapel across your arm that's underneath the head?
I kind of fake them out. So I go for, the goon squad the goon squad submission, which is, the Americana, right? You have them in side control, you go for the Americana, but I fake them out when they defend for that Americana. But, they go for their hand. And I've never... Armbars and I have a love-hate relationship. This has been for years. And so I will kind of fake out like I'm going to take the arm just to lift that arm up a little bit. And when I do, I grab their lapel and shoot it down and feed it to myself.
Sure.
And then snap down that chicken wing to make sure their head doesn't escape. And by that time, if I have them in side control, even without my leg across, because most people will start to roll like onto their stomach in a panic, then I just snap my leg over and keep them there, and then hook the leg and take it from there.
Perfect.
And so I learned to modify, to be able to pull it off. And I always say a bow and arrow choke is my favorite choke that I can rarely pull off. And then once I do,
Good. Okay, so let's back up a little bit and get into the tournament. If you don't know, when I do these interviews, I like to ask the interviewee some questions where they have a depth of knowledge and experience to help out our listeners.
Yeah,
so for students entering their first tournament, I always ask this question: what's your advice for students entering their first tournament? Now, you already gave one piece, and I don't know if this would have been the first thing to come to your mind, but go to a tournament as a spectator first.
Yeah.
I never thought about that, but you're talking about what you learn when you go as a spectator.
Yeah, study the game.
Other than that, what kind of advice do you have for a new student who's going to their first tournament?
I know a lot of people say, go have fun, just enjoy it. And I would say if it's your first one, be focused. Don't... I think I make the mistake a couple times where I let outside stuff. Once you walk into that gym where the tournament's being held or that location, be focused. Have a purpose. Know what it is that you want to do. If you're just there and you're like, oh, I'm just here to have fun, then okay, you're gonna have fun. But if you're there, I'm here to win. I'm here to get this done. I'm here to make it through 2 rounds. Whatever the goal may be, have a goal, a small one or a big one, but have a goal and work throughout the entire day to achieve that goal, no matter how small. It's, some people, it's just getting to a tournament.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I always tell people, and I tell them this for 2 reasons. 50% of the people in a tournament lose their first match.
Yeah.
So I tell them that, so you don't have to feel bad if you lose your first match. But I also tell them that means you've got just as much chance of winning that first match as anybody else.
That's right.
So don't go in there expecting to lose because it's your first tournament.
Yeah.
Yep, that's great. Yeah. So how about advice for more seasoned competitors? And I have this broke down into a few sub-questions. How about game planning and narrowing your focus? I think it's generally accepted that white belts, you should just try and learn everything. You got to get a couple decent moves from each position. But by the time you're closing in on blue belt, if you're a competitor, when should you start to narrow your game a little bit for tournaments, and how does that look to you?
This is here recently is probably the first time I've ever really done it.
And you've been grappling for how many years?
2015, 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah. I started jiu-jitsu, like I said, after that first stroke, and then just kept going, and I've had to pause off and on since then, but it not for very long. I think my longest pause was right before my dad passed away, and then the day that I found out he passed away, my car drove itself to the gym, and I ended up rolling. And it'd been more than a few months. So that was the longest I had gone, and it was So it was one of those things where I had to I can't go without this. I need to do it. So.
So how narrow is your game now when it comes to tournaments?
Now I don't want to say I have a game plan, but I do go in with a purpose and an idea of, okay, if this happens, I guess it is a game plan, but if this happens, then I've got this.
That's actually my idea of a game plan. I know some people think there's two different types. Like, my game plan is I'm going to take down, I'm going to pass, that's one type of game plan. Yeah. I think it's more beneficial to say, if my opponent passes his side control, this is my escape.
Yeah.
If they get mount, this is my escape.
Yes.
If I get mount, this is my...
Yes, these are my options.
So that's how you approach it.
Yes, and mentally playing it out in my head. If I get to this point and they do take me down, that's not my goal. My goal is to get on top, be on top, stay on top. But if they do take me down, then what are my options? Mm-hmm. And from the list of options, where does it branch out? What can I do from there? And what is my best, and where am I more likely to succeed? Because you have your options from a specific area, but maybe 2 out of those 4 are not things that you drill a whole lot. and so you kind of tend to go towards these other ones. That's what I think of. But I think about the ones that maybe I'm not that great at, and if that's my only choice, then guess what? Alia's going for it. It's going to happen. So it's a game plan. But I for seasoned competitors, I think as I've talked to people that are higher up and that compete a whole lot more, they go in with. I've heard a couple where they say, I'm going to pull off this move in this tournament. I'm going to do this. I've seen it. This is the last couple of weeks where they on Instagram, they're like, watch me in the middle of this tournament, in the middle of Worlds. I'm going to pull off, whatever. And I'm just like, oh, but they do.
Nice to be at that level, huh?
Right? Yeah. What is it? That Babe Ruth thing, right? Where he calls it and So it's not there yet, but, I think also too for seasoned competitors, and this may be just selfish of me, but because I've been on the receiving end of some awesome black belts that at tournaments that have seen me bummed out because I don't have anybody in my division, and I've driven hours to get to this tournament and spent money and gas and whatever, and they've said, women and men, but mostly some black belt, Texas black belt women that are amazing, that have said, hey mama, come on, let's come over here, we'll roll over here, just so it's not it's not wasted. And I'm just like, okay, just because why pass up an opportunity to roll with a black belt? Why not? Especially someone who's been doing it for so long and maybe owns their own gym or teaches, whatever. Just do it. You could always learn something, and they don't have to be like that. So for competitors who are at that upper level, I would say take the time and look for those people. I don't know if it's,
So
you know what I mean?
So
like,
part of your advice is to get the most out of it, even if the tournament itself doesn't play out the way you want. There's always some value in going.
Yeah.
Speaking of black belts, we had a party for our coach yesterday, and it's an anniversary for the gym, 2 years in its current location.
Yeah.
There at BTT Lake Jackson. And the day had kind of wound down, and I can't remember if I was on the sideline having a beer or if I was still playing with my grandson, but I heard you giggling. Just like that.
Yeah.
I heard you giggling on the mats, and I turned around, and you were getting your ass whooped.
I was getting my ass handed to me, not by one black belt, but 2 black belts.
Yep, back to back. And I tell you, it warms my heart when I see people who are on the learning end and just really enjoying it, because it's easy to get a little frustrated. Even when you're rolling with a black belt and you should get your ass handed to you, it's easy to still kind of get down on yourself. But, man, you were having a good time.
Yeah. Part of it is I'm just happy to be able to roll. Like, I just love that I can show up every day and I can roll and I'm alive to be able to do it, and my limbs function, and it's that bigger picture of I'm here and I am doing it. Like, this is my life. It's kind of crazy. Like, this is my life. This is what I do. I work at the gym, so it's one of those okay, this is considering everything that has happened, but it's also I'm is not, I don't want to say they're not even trying, because I feel like, maybe they were. Yes, they were.
They could be holding on a casual conversation and still doing the same thing.
Yes. And then when they see, because my face doesn't lie. I know people out there can't say it, but my face does not lie. So when I am rolling and I am looking for, have you ever seen that meme with the guy from The Hangover where there's math equations going on and like that? That's what I feel like sometimes when I'm rolling, not just with black belts or upper belts, with anybody, because I'm trying to figure out where can I go from here? And so rolling with them yesterday, I tried one thing, nope. Tried something else, nope. And I just kind of held onto the inside of his pants, and he just kind of sat there, not very nicely, by the way, but just kind of sat there and just looked at me and was like, are you gonna go? And I was like, hold on, give me a minute, because you're trying to problem solve, and it's I've said it before, where it's like, they say, what is it? Jiu-Jitsu is a game of chess. I'm more of a Connect 4 kind of gal. So I was like, oh, that might work. No, shut it down. Oh, let me try here. And then he kept, the one you heard me giggling, I think the most was, I was in his close guard and I was trying to escape his close guard, and he kept, it's that awareness that comes with that level, right, of your body weight changing and your pressure changing. As soon as I moved my knee to the middle, to right at his butt, to try to
he's catching you with that simple sweep.
Simple, just and then after a while, I think he even said to coach, he was like 5 times I've done it. It was, and I didn't learn. I didn't learn, and I was like, okay, no, I'm gonna base out really hard. Even if I base out really hard, in order to get out of the guard, I have to move my knee over. So as soon as I just moved it just a little bit, and I was like, man, okay, I guess this is my life now. I'm getting, but I'm laughing the whole time. It was just a lot of fun.
And you won't be facing adult black belts all the time.
Ooh,
so even though he was able to sweep you 5+ times with the same thing, I guarantee in the back of your mind you have a little better understanding about weight distribution.
Oh, yes.
and where to put your weight,
yes.
and timing. And man, it's amazing in our sport that we have people of that level that will take the time to work with people of our level,
yes.
and teach us that kind of stuff.
Yes. And isn't that how we learn, though, right? Everything I feel like defense-wise that I've gotten good at is because I got hit with it.
Because coach is really good at the offensive side of the same equation.
Right? Yeah. Like, you know, I know we joke about wrist lockers and stuff, but yeah. It's one of those things where I feel like I'm so much more aware of wrist locks because I was wrist locked a lot. And what do they say? Hurt people. So yeah. Yesterday was the same thing. I was rolling with Patricio, and I was in his guard, but I was just real casually, just kind of, you know, just trying. To you, I follow you on Instagram. It was like no. So I was like, man, the white belts are aware. They're aware now. They know.
Yep. So another question about tournaments for people who are a little more seasoned, or at your level anyway. How about peaking and tapering? Are you training like balls to the wall until the day of the tournament, or are you getting
I used to
a little smarter? And so tell me about peaking and tapering a little bit.
I used to you know, the second gym that I went to, my coach is the jiu-jitsu coach for Donald Cowboy Cerrone.
Awesome.
So balls out was the name of the game. Like, that is where you know, I was birthed in the Shark Tank at that gym and drowned in the Shark Tank at that gym and baptized in the Shark Tank at that gym. So it was eye-opening to see people, and again, you know, granted they're half my age a lot of times, but to see people, because it was a majority of professional and amateur MMA fighters that trained there, to see them just go all out all the time, day in, day out, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, kickboxing, MMA classes, like just 7 days a week. Some, you know, and all the way up until tournament day. And then I saw where they would ease up a little bit the last couple of days, and I didn't understand why, because in my head, not knowing shit, I would be like, why don't you keep going until the very, you know, and that's what I would do. And I would, all the way up until my tournament, I would go and train. And I'd be exhausted. And I learned that you can't. And it's not even, for me, it wasn't a health thing. It was a mental thing, and just knowing when to push, know when to pause. You know, you can, I noticed that the camps for Worlds, for Masters and World, they would run about 2 weeks before, because you go, and then you take the week before to just, like you said, taper off a little bit. You still drill, you still go out, get a good sweat on, you know, maybe do some cardio.
Yeah, what's your last, because you got a big tournament coming up. We're doing this on Monday, and you've got a tournament coming up the end of the week. What's your last week of training looked like?
So my last week of training was what we just wrapped up with the open, well, you know, with yesterday. It's a lot of drilling, a lot of focused on, like you said, situational responses to certain things. For me personally, it's a mental. A lot of it is mental. I have to get into, because the switch turns on. For me, I don't know about for anybody else, but in the gym. But for me, when I step on the mats, like, I'm gym mom off the mats, and your sister, your whatever. But when I go on the mats, it's different. It's one of our teammates actually made the comment, because he saw at one of the grappling games, he was like, I saw the switch. Literally, he was like, y'all don't even know, like, because me off the mats is a whole lot different. And even though I'm smiling and I shake their hand and whatever, as soon as lapels are grabbed or we make contact, a switch comes on. It's how I work, and so yeah, it's mentally, for me, I have to get in that place, because it's not a place I like to go to, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. And that aspect of your personality is known in the gym. I've heard more than one person say when they see you stepping on the mats, she scares me.
What's crazy is I think it's a mix Again, my face doesn't lie, so I think something a mixture with I'm not wearing my contacts or my glasses, so it's a mix up. I can't see, so I'm squinting, and I have this. Every picture I've seen the gym post, I feel like I've got this furrowed brow going on, and it's that, but also because it something happens. I don't know what it is. I can't explain. I don't understand that aspect of it enough to understand that when I step foot onto the mats, there is a different rolling. I'm usually talking to myself and sometimes singing, but just to myself, just kind of to keep my focus. But something happens in competition mode. When we do comp class, it's...
How's your self-talk right as you're stepping on the mat? Are you focusing on, I need to be tough, I need to be strong, or are you focusing on more of the game plan we talked about earlier?
Can we cuss on this podcast? not
I think we already have.
Yeah, so my self-talk in the weeks leading up are, you're doing this. You can do this. Look at what you've achieved. Look at what you've done.
Okay.
You can do this. It's that kind of self-talk.
Sure.
That does not keep me from puking before every tournament, honestly. But
you still get the nerves?
Oh, well, yeah. Usually on the drive there, or like to the tournament. I don't know how that's going to work on the plane, but but it's usually like going into right before the tournament. I'll get a good Ralph session out, and then I'm just like, woo, okay, let's go. And then I'm fine. But it's in basketball, it was like that too. Same thing. And the same thing before when when my sneaker stepped foot on the hardwood floor, it was just a change. I felt I turned into Rodman, that
we are of the same era.
Yeah. I didn't turn into David Robinson. It was a Rodman situation. So the same thing with tournament, the weeks leading up, it's that, that reassurance, that positive self-talk, that, because we're our own worst enemy, right? I can beat myself up a whole lot better than most people will ever be able to tear me down. I am the top person in my list, that can just tear apart every single thing that I do on the mats. And I've done it. I've done it before.
So by sort of purposefully flooding your self-talk with positive affirmation, you eliminate the negative.
Yeah, I just don't even allow it in my head. If someone says, well, yeah, I feel like you could, this, I don't want to hear it. Yeah, and I'll usually just, and if you've ever been on the receiving end, you know what I'm talking about, of me doing it where we're having a conversation and then somebody will kind of start going to the negative side, and I'll just casually yeet myself over this way, like that kind of thing. Yeah, no, not at that moment, not in weeks leading up to a tournament. And then at the tournament, there's a playlist, of certain stuff.
Same playlist all the time?
No. Okay. It depending on what's going on in my life, it does change. Okay. And it varies.
But it's important to you to have a good playlist.
A good one. And just something to, I'm not one of those that, I don't know, I think it may be different for masters where because so big that there's a lot of that white noise, and I'm not really a white noise kind of person. I don't know if you've ever seen, but whenever we have the radio going and it's too loud, I have to turn it down, only because I'm hard of hearing on one end, but also two, I want to be able to hear everything, and absorb. So headphones, I think, are going to be beneficial in this particular tournament. But most of these local tournaments and stuff, I don't do I do the playlist on the way.
Okay.
And I'm just driving down the highway, yeah. Okay. And then in the women's restroom, usually right before my division gets called, there is a curse word filled motivational. I'm sure if anybody outside of the stall, it probably sounds really weird and they think I'm crazy, but there's, it's usually that get the fuck up, gee the fuck up, you can do this, that type of mantra type thing. And it's not about, at that point, it's not about, okay, look at what you've done, look at, it's not that, it's you're fucking doing this, get your ass in there, go kill, that kind of thing. It's a switch. Like I said, it's a switch of mentality, and
I want to revisit this and talk about it 3 or 4 years from now. I've always been interested in Pavlov's dogs, the experiment where the dog's mouth...
Ding, salivate,
Exactly. And I've always been interested in high-level athletes and how many of them have a routine like you're talking about that flips that switch, that puts them in that competition mode. So let's hit that again in 5 years. I think
a lot of it has to also too, and this, I don't know if this was part of Pavlov's thing. I can't remember, but there's for me, there's a smell. I'm a very olfactory kind of person. When we would come visit back home for me, the smell of the Spanish moss and the Brazos River, that muddy water, that it instantly triggers memories, kind of thing. The tournaments and the gym, it's the same thing. That smell of the mat. That smell of, I don't know if it's a good or a bad smell, but in my mind, when I smell that, it's that on.
It would probably additionally freak your opponents out a little bit if every time you competed, you went to the center of the mat and knelt down and went...
That could be an option. That would be kind of weird. What would the refs say? Can you imagine the refs like, what is she doing?
It might have some value. Real quick, we're coming up on time here, but I want to ask you a couple more questions. And one of them is, and like I said, this won't air until after your tournament, but I wanted to ask you about training through injuries, especially leading up to a tournament, because I know you've got a gimpy arm a little bit right now. So tell me first about your arm, and then tell me how you've been training around it leading up to the tournament.
So I went to go support a great cause, Jiu-Jitsu, which supports the We Defy Foundation, which helps.
Which is awesome.
Oh yeah. I love Brian Marvin and all those guys. I love what they're doing, and they've always been super supportive of me. When I've gone out and, like I said, my brother from another mother is a veteran, as well as his wife is a veteran, and it's just one of those causes that I truly believe in. And so they were putting on a Jiu-Jitsu out in Corpus,
which is beer and Jiu-Jitsu. It doesn't get much better than that, right? Right. And then you get to meet again, network, socialize, meet other competitors and grapplers, and I want to be able to, like, if I ever get the chance to travel, to be able to go into any gym and roll with people. So I thought this was a good opportunity, and I went and. I did not know at the time, but I saw this guy sitting in the corner. He was just sitting there. Everybody else had already started rolling. And I was like, we didn't come to this open mat to sit here. Come on, let's roll. Me being me, come to find out, it was a black belt. It was a black belt and an owner of a local Houston gym. And within the first 2 minutes, he wrist locked me, I don't know how many times, kind of like a, hey girl, settle down. And then in one of my rolls, I kind of tweaked my, it wasn't with an arm bar actually, I can't even remember what we were doing, but my arm got stuck in, it was an omoplata. My arm kind of got stuck where I was trying to defend the omoplata, but my brain told me to roll one way, and then when I got halfway there, I was like, nope, that hurt. Let me go and I tried to go the other way, and it just kind of just hyperextended, I think, right over the clavicle, that muscle right over the clavicle, and I was doing okay the first day. The Sunday after, driving home, I had to have my daughter look to get to the other lanes and stuff. Right. It was that I didn't have full range of motion to turn. And then when I got back, I told Coach, and I was like, I don't know what to do, because I'm experienced with what to do with my knees, because those are the nagging ones. But I did not know. I've never had experience, that kind of muscle stuff. So ice, heat. Tiger Bomb is my best friend, has always been my best friend since the kickboxing days. And then the TENS unit. I'm a big proponent of any type of massage that I think before tournaments and after tournaments, kind of like that treat, Yeah. But I went and did that. And she just manipulated a little too hard, and I told, and it was not her fault; it was my fault because I fell asleep. But but she was so relaxing. But she just manipulated that muscle a little too much, and I think it inflamed the next day. And I went to go hug Kristen, and just to where I picked my. And this is one of those know when to push, know when to pause, where I would dress out, put my gi on, but I was chilling off to the side. I got on the air bike, I think that last day. But it was because it was with the mentality of
those of us that are competing, that are going to Vegas, we wanted to roll hard on Thursday for the class, and then for competition class, we wanted to push it and get one good hard roll in, and then I was going to chill out Friday, and then Saturday we had open mat, and then Sunday we were going to have coach's thing. So I had a plan. I stuck to the plan for the most part. And then yesterday rolling, the rolls were good. It was, everybody knows, especially too, I have to say that our teammates are pretty good about when they know we're competing. Oh, yeah. They're very aware of what hurts and what doesn't. So it was good. It was really good. So that's my mentality is, okay, I can protect this arm and give it some rest, but I can still work my legs. Still work, my other arm still works, and that goes back to the physical therapy part, coming back from the strokes where my left side was so weak, I would have to sit off to the side, and we put a gi over a kick shield and tied the belt, and I would, while class was going on and I was watching, I was practicing with my left hand how to grip the lapel again, how to learn to tie my belt again. That was like, whew, that was rough. That was lots of tears. Yeah. But stuff like that, it goes back to that where this might be hurt, but that doesn't mean you're completely out. I'm a big proponent. I'm not that person that when they're like, oh gosh, if you're sick, I understand. You got a cold, don't get me sick. But if it's like, oh, my ankle hurts or whatever, and I won't see y'all at the gym. I've gone on crutches. I've crawled with my crutches, with my air cast, and I've crawled on the mats and just gone, stayed on bottom so my teammate could drill her mount or drill her knee on belly or whatever. I'm just not, that's just not in my, I don't know. It's just not how I am.
It's not who you are.
No, it's just not. And so, if I got to put this arm in a sling for a little bit and work with the other hand, then guess what? I'm going to be really good at my left hand.
Yeah, you said two things there that I think are golden. And one, my first reaction is it's men that are worse at this. But the first thing you said is to take care of the injury. Put some ice on it. Yeah. If it's an ankle, get it elevated. Yeah. Put some
rice.
Yeah, take care of it. That's the first thing. But the other thing is, I like that you're still doing some cardio and stuff, but I like it more that you're actually doing it at the gym.
Yes.
Because you're coming in, you're still being a part of the gym, you're staying connected, you're watching jiu-jitsu. Because you could stay at home and ride an exercise bike, or you could go down to the rec center or something. But by coming into the gym, it's extra beneficial.
And sometimes watching the lesson, if I've learned anything in my times where I've had to pause, sometimes watching coach teach without the pressure of, oh, I got to drill this in a little bit, right. Where you're just like, what do we say? What are we doing? Without that pressure, sometimes watching, I've learned so much more watching our coaches, just watching them and listening to what they're saying, and then seeing everybody drill and like, oh, okay, and maybe one person's what they would call a mistake because they're not doing it right. Maybe that's not really a mistake. It's an option.
Yeah.
It's an option of, oh, what if my arm is hurt and I have to use this? Oh, that makes sense. Like, okay, just more aware. But I think that goes back to studying the game.
Absolutely.
Studying the game.
Which is a big push in our gym.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's close with one last piece of advice for students at this point. How do you approach learning from the results of a tournament? Does anybody film it? Do you watch film? Do you think about it directly afterwards? How's that work out in your world?
In the beginning, it was I would have somebody try to film it. I don't have a lot of them on film actually, but I would try to have somebody film it, and then I would just tear myself apart. And I noticed that put me more in a hole, in a rut.
So that might work for some people, but that's not.
It does not work for me. No. I will kind of break down in my own head. And I know some people too, they, you know, after a tournament, they take a week off or they take a couple of days off. I'm right back in the next day. Like I try, you know, just, and I'm drilling like, gosh, what did she get me in? You know, that last one where it was teeny tiny, like I outweighed that girl by over 100 pounds and I could not pass her guard. I folded her like a lawn chair and I could not pass her guard.
I hate rolling with people like that.
Golly. Yeah, but that was amazing. It was one of my most favorite, you know, roles. And so I had to go to coach and I was like, gosh, I don't know. I don't know enough to know what I did wrong, you know? Mm-hmm. And right away he was like, go get the dummy. I call our dummy Drop Dead Fred, our drill dummy. And so he was like, go get the dummy. He's like, let me show you something. And he showed me how to pass someone's guard and specifically hers, like the way she was defending and other ways. And I thought, man, like, okay, I would have never thought to learn that, right? Because I'd never experienced that before. And she actually was not going to be my opponent to begin with. We just both ended up in divisions that didn't have opponents, and we just wanted a match. You know, we just wanted to so it kind of turned into an absolute type thing. And yeah, that would be that's kind of that mentality.
So your go-to is to grab one of your coaches or more experienced teammates and throw some questions at them.
Yeah. And just brainstorm for myself, what happened, what went wrong, what went right, and how do I either duplicate that or avoid it? Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap it up, remind us, where will you be this weekend? What's going on?
So I fly out Wednesday. Today's Monday, and I fly out Wednesday to Vegas to compete in my first ever IBJJF World Master Championship. And I am a Master 2 Blue Super Heavy division. When I first signed up, there was only like 3 of us. And I kind of, you know, put out the call, like, we out here, ladies, y'all come. And we have 10. Never in my life would I have thought that there would be, in Masters, number 1, and then in Super Heavy, number 2, 10 women in my division, including myself.
So new for you that you'll have a big bracket.
Yeah. Ideally 4 matches. It'll be 4 matches, and I am down. I'm so ready. And I compete later in the afternoon, so that's also good too, because I'll be able to, you know, check people out during the day. And then I compete on Thursday. The way everything's set up as of now, I'll compete on Thursday. So I fly in Wednesday, get to relax a little bit, and then Thursday I'll be competing in the afternoon. And then I have a list of people, of our teammates and then other people that I'm going to catch their matches as well. People that I've seen before and other people that I've never seen before. So I'm super excited. And then Coach says we're hitting up a Vegas buffet before we leave. And then I fly out. I think it wraps up Saturday, and my flight is at 1:30 in the morning, early Sunday morning, late Saturday. So we'll do the buffet thing and then turn around and go come home. So I should be home Sunday morning, like 6 a.m. and
start training for the next one.
Actually, if we have drills, our drill session that we usually have on Sunday, the open mat, then I'll be there.
You'll be there.
I'll be there Sunday.
Awesome.
Yeah.
hey, before we go, anybody you want to give a shout out to or say thanks?
Yeah, I always have to say thank you to the coaches that I've had. In, you know, like I said, in my training lifetime, I've only been to 3 gyms, and every single coach, no matter the sport, I've absorbed a little bit of everything that they've ever taught me, and I'm super, super grateful. The Mighty Dames is a group, so for any heavyweight women or not heavyweight women that are out there, the Mighty Dames is a group that I am a part of that I've just, you know, I can't champion them enough. These Tori O'Neill and her, you know, group of people that are out there that this is how I met a lot of the women that are in my division. This is how I've reached out and networked with them. It's a great group to support. Like I said, it's not just for heavyweight women, but it's for, everybody, guys too. And also the Girls and Geese organization, which that's where I'll be at the end of the month in Sugarland to go to that. They support, every tournament. There's always a tournament. So definitely thanks to all of them, because they've always been a champion to, friends and family is one thing, but people that either have never met you or you've only known through social media, they've always championed everything I've ever done, from the lows to the highs. And Avery Clements, who is a managing editor there at the Jiu-Jitsu Times, she's, become like family from a distance. And she's the one who initially, she'd been telling me for a couple years now to do the article, and I kind of like, no, nobody's going to want to hear my story. Nobody's going to want to. And finally, she's like, it's time. I think this will, people can relate to this and see, like, you've been through some things. And so, yeah, I thank you, Avery, very much. I appreciate it for, everything you've done, and constant support from the entire community. So, yeah, and thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking time to hop on here with us. Thanks for sharing your story. It's truly inspirational, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome.
Man, it was great having Alia on the show. Thanks, Alia. I appreciate your time. Just an update for the listeners. Since we recorded this interview, she did go to Las Vegas and compete in the Masters Open, and she got silver in her division. I believe it was pretty deep. I think there was about a dozen girls in the division. She came away with silver, so congratulations.
That is awesome.
Yep. Congratulations, and that's thank you for sharing your story with us as well. Guys, we've got an article that the title of it made me think, I've never thought of that. And it's interesting. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. It's toplevelmartialarts.com. And the title is a question. It says, is jiu-jitsu training violent? And the read from the article is what you probably would expect. Overall, no. You can train jiu-jitsu and experience violence, or be involved in a higher degree of violence with jiu-jitsu, but overall, no. Jiu-jitsu as something that we do as a hobby, at a gym, is not, shouldn't experience really that much of a degree of violence. What would you guys say to that?
Well, in the article, the author talked about at the higher levels, especially if you're like training at an MMA gym, then yes, you're going to encounter some violence, and then a non-MMA focused gym, but a high-level jiu-jitsu competitive gym, you might also encounter some violence in training. And then you get to most of the gyms are, full of hobbyists, and those gyms you're not likely to encounter any violence. And I would agree with that if the definition of violence is, aggressive grappling and maybe a potential to get injured. But I would like to tell our listeners from my perspective, I look at violence more as intentions. If somebody intends to hurt me, if somebody's plan is to come in and injure me, and in that regard, I don't see violence, and I haven't seen it really any place I've trained. Even the gyms that are MMA centric and have guys competing in the octagon on a regular basis, I've never felt unsafe training. So if we're talking about the new person and they're considering training, that's what I would tell them is there's the appearance of violence, because you've got a bunch of guys trying to choke each other and bend each other's arms in directions they're not supposed to go. But very, very rarely will you ever go into a jiu-jitsu or an MMA gym and find people that are actually trying to hurt each other. In fact, it's just the opposite. They want to get better at this without injuring people. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I really like that, Joe. I didn't think about that aspect of it. And now that you said it, I guess that's kind of my definition of violence too. If somebody's really trying to hurt you, and if I go into a gym and I tap and somebody doesn't let go of the submission on purpose, hey, I consider that violent, and I'm not going to train there again. But I have never run into that either. It seems like the people I train with are safe, and I can think of a time where somebody picked me up to slam me on concrete, and I don't necessarily think he did it on purpose. I think it was a newer person who was kind of scared of what was going to happen. And, that could be related to, not talking to the new person beforehand. And, but yeah, I could see the perception of people, and our goal is to get people to train, just like, this top level martial arts. Bill Jones is the owner and head instructor there. And, we want people to train jiu-jitsu, and I never really thought about it either. Like what Byron was talking about is people may think that if they show up to a class, it is going to be violent, that they're going to come home with 2 black eyes, a broken nose, and 12 stitches above their eye. And, that is not the case. Hopefully not the case.
Now that Gary puts all that in the statement there, it makes me second guess the way I described jiu-jitsu to people who don't have a clue. I've had people ask me what is that? They don't know, and I say, well, think about the UFC without the kicks and punches. And that may not be the best way to describe it if you're trying to convince somebody to come in and train with you and they don't know what they're doing. So thanks, Gary. Appreciate that, man.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I didn't really realize that this could be a question in somebody's mind when I invite them. Hey, yeah, let's come check out the gym. We'll do some jiu-jitsu, have a good time, and you'll learn a little bit of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, something like that. And if they have questions, obviously I'm answering questions and that sort of thing. But maybe in the back of their mind, it's just so far from what after you train for a little while. Like, it's not even a question in your head. Is this going to be violent today? Like, that is just so foreign to me to think about that. But that might be a very common thing that they're not asking, and it could be in the back of their head. Am I going to get hurt? What are the chances I get hurt? How am I going to get hurt? How uncomfortable is this going to be? And those sort of things. So really, for the first day, yeah, come on in. We'll get you, on the mats. We'll teach you a little bit about jiu-jitsu, introduce you to some people that I'd like you to meet. We'll make sure you're safe. That's a big part of what we do is we want to be safe while on the mats. That sort of thing. Because we've all experienced inviting somebody to jiu-jitsu that don't show up. That's more normal than not. Is you give it the best invite you can, but maybe part of what's keeping them out is they're questioning how violent is this going to be? What are the odds I get hurt? And really, the odds should be very low. It's accident. You fall down and twist your ankle, or they shouldn't be getting hurt from an armbar. They shouldn't be getting hurt from a submission. Like that should be a 0% chance because you're not. If they don't know how to tap or they're not tapping, you don't hurt them. That's ridiculous. So just to kind of help out the new person, maybe you should just throw this question in your head. He might be thinking, or she might be thinking, is this going to be violent? Am I going to get hurt? And that might help you get them on the mat just to try it out.
I go back to, I've told this story numerous times. The first time I went to try jiu-jitsu, I had no friends that did jiu-jitsu. I didn't know really anything about it except
I like how you throw the no friends that did jiu-jitsu. You need to frame it like that. Gary, he had no friends, and then go ahead.
No, but I watched the UFC, and I told the story about how I drove by the first day, and this is exactly how I felt. I did not know what was going to happen. I didn't know if these guys that were wearing tap-out hats that I thought were probably the toughest guys around because they did jiu-jitsu. I didn't know if there was going to be punches thrown. I didn't know if somebody was going to mount me and start raining down, punches like I watched in the UFC and then throw an armbar on. I really didn't know. And, I think, that kind of intrigued me that I wanted to learn that too. But, here I was 35 years old starting and didn't know if I could do that with some younger people who were, very skilled. And so I think that was one of the things that scared me. And then when I did show up and I was like, okay, nobody got their teeth knocked out. Nobody went home in the hospital. And it seems like these guys were actually pretty nice to me and didn't really beat me up too bad. These guys seem pretty good. But that is how I felt. I didn't know what to expect, and I was scared.
And I think that's a common thought that we just don't think about, because once you do it for a little while, it's not even, doesn't even come up.
Yeah, and you can take the initiative and reassure somebody of that even before they ask the question, because sometimes a new person comes into class and they're full of apprehension and they're not sure exactly all the reasons why they might be apprehensive. So, yeah, you can just assure them that a new person never gets hurt in this gym. The coach isn't going to let you roll with somebody who doesn't have enough experience to roll with you safely, and it's not going to be a concern at all.
What about the other side, the person who wants to come into chaos and violence and walks into a jiu-jitsu gym?
My first thought on that is they haven't experienced that yet, and I'd still recommend that they go in and try jiu-jitsu the way it's being practiced before you ask for a more extreme version of something. Try it at you want to play t-ball before you play,
good point,
slow pitch or whatever.
Real good point.
Because if you haven't experienced it, you have really no idea what you're asking for, and the odds are, if you're unskilled, pretty much, even no matter how tough you actually are or how tough you think you are, that somebody there could easily handle the situation that you bring them. And you're not gonna. That's a way to come in and try to be super tough and good and think you are, and go home and quit that same night. Like, you're not gonna have a good time. I always use the example of hockey. Here in Kansas, we don't play a lot of hockey. I've ice skated once or twice, just for fun. So I don't really know how to skate. I could be a fast person. I could be a strong person. I'm not neither one of those really. But hey, having those attributes, they don't really help me play hockey, because I don't know how to play hockey. I don't have the skills to play hockey. Same thing with the jiu-jitsu. If you're fast or you're strong, or maybe you boxed for a while or whatever, like, those skills right now don't help you do jiu-jitsu. So just put your ego aside and try to learn some jiu-jitsu if that's what you're wanting to do.
But Byron, I like to go back to the quote, where we're talking about persistence.
There you go.
And then with Joe, how do you say her name? Alia? Alia. Persistence. And, so even if you've got a guy who's boxed or a guy who's played hockey, hey, how long have you played hockey, Jim? Hey, I've been playing 4 years of hockey, and, I just want to try something else. Like, they already got that persistence. So I think that, even though that's not a physical skill, that's a mental skill, I do think, by playing those sports, by sticking to it, that it will help them in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, if you were a boxer for, say, half a dozen years, you took it serious, that's not going to help you your first month on the mats for sure as far as skills translating. But I agree with you, Gary. I think that's a great point, that you spent 5 years doing something that was really difficult to do. So now when you do jiu-jitsu, you've already got that skill you bring with you.
Yes. Yep. Sorry for making you realize that you were wrong, Byron.
I appreciate that.
Byron is going to choke me out now.
That's not going to happen either. I can attempt, and that's fine. Guys, I want to give a shout-out to our Patreon supporters, and we have 3 new ones because, well, it's funny. Sometimes we'll go a month and not get any new ones, and that's just kind of the way things are. And sometimes we'll have several kind of keying at the same time. As soon as I'm out of the country, we get some. It's like, man, I apologize. I can't send out the BJJ Break Patreon pack in the mail right away because I'm not home. So I got home, and by now, the time they're hearing these, they have their sweet gifts of appreciation that I've mailed them. But this is talking about Bogdan, Sam, and Kiki. Thank you guys for signing up on Patreon and supporting the show. And what they've done basically is listen to the show and thought, man, this is a good show. I want to help it out and support it and lend a little bit of help financially. So you could pitch in $1, $2 or $3, whatever you feel is easy for you to do. If you have a hard time financially, just listen to the show. It's free. It's not a big deal. But if you're able to help us out, we definitely appreciate that. I'll mail you out 2 BJJ Brick gi patches. We have the new one, and we have the old throwback patch. While we still have some of those, I'm going to keep giving those away, might as well. And a couple of stickers. I'll put them in the envelope as well and send that to your house or your place of business, wherever address you give me, anywhere in the world. And all 3 of these, Bogdan, Sam, and Kiki, you're all invited to join the private Facebook group. Just send me a message on Facebook. Hey, this is me, and I'll get you added in to the private group. You could find me, just search for Byron Jabara on Facebook. I'll pop right up. I'm kind of the guy with the big nose. And what we do on there, we talk a little bit of trash, have some fun. And also, this week, we decided what's going to happen next week. So next week is the topic show, the topic episode.
And our listeners get to decide that. Right now we have between a strong defense equals freedom to play. We have travel and BJJ.
Yeah, they are. The 2 big topics.
And we have another very big topic. I see it was added by one of our listeners. Is Byron's nose too big for jiu-jitsu or something like that? And so there are 3 right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of Byron, you know what I find I find it interesting, Gary. So Byron leaves the country to go on vacation, and news of his departure spreads throughout the jiu-jitsu community. And immediately there's speculation that he may be leaving the BJJ Brick podcast, which would leave you and I to do the show. And suddenly we get an influx of Patreon supporters.
That's true.
Could be a coincidence. I don't know.
Hey, and speaking of that, we got Patreon supporters, but I heard from another person who listened to our show for the first time. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Daniel Alaman. Listen to our show. Thank you. Tell your friends about it too. And just let us know if we're better as Joe and I, or we're better with Byron on it. But I know what the answer is.
Yeah, you guys were great. I'll give you that.
Joe, this is Byron's show. This is Byron's company, and we're going to take it over. This is called a hostile takeover.
Let's just hold a vote, okay? Between the 3 of us, we have odd numbers. Say nothing if you want to vote me off. Okay, that's we're anonymous. I'm not unanimous. So, man, well, it's been fun.
It's been real fun.
I'm sure Gary and Joe will piece together a great show next week, and maybe let me on. Maybe they just let me edit it. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we need your editing skills. Yeah. Or Joe, hey, that monkey you saw that escaped from the zoo? Because he could probably take Byron's spot. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Better looking, too.
And house trained. Well, good times this week. It's fun to be back
Byron,
here.
We're happy. In all reality, we're happy to have you back, Byron.
Yeah, at least for one more episode. This one. It's good to be back. It's always good to be back home. And, I told Jake when I got back, man, I miss this place. I miss the gym. And that was one of the rewards. When I got to Iceland and I got on the mats, and I had a smile ear to ear, like all these things that I'm around. It's new to me. It's foreign. There's a lot of confusing street signs, food I don't understand, and language I don't understand. Get on the mat and we start running. Kind of getting warmed up, doing circles. Man, I'm just smiling. Like, this is home. Like I could go anywhere in the world and get this feeling like, yeah, it's time for jiu-jitsu. This is, and you could get that experience in your hometown, wherever you are. But trust me, if you step out of that and you go to, a gym halfway around the world, you get the feeling of, yeah, I'm home. I'm where I belong. Like anywhere in this city, I know I belong here. This is good. This is great, and that's part of the big. So we might be talking about travel in BJJ, and I definitely have some good experiences doing that. I know you guys have done it as well. Or we might be talking about building a strong defense to get more freedom on the mats. And we'll see how our Patreon supporters on our private Facebook page vote. And we'll bring that to you guys next week. Until then, stay sweaty, my friends. Hey, let me do this. Let me do this. Stay sweaty, ladies and gentlemen.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better. We'll see you on the mats.
There we go.
Man, I didn't think anybody would notice that. I've been saying my friends forever. So.
I did not notice. Gary caught it.
I like it.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.